Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are going to talk about the strengthening of the SACEP referral mechanism.
Do we need to start from the introduction? Start the session. Okay.
Yeah, sorry for the technical issues. Just to remind you all ART medical officers that we started that national ART program way back in 2004 on 1st of April, and then from 1st Jan 2008 onwards, the second line ART rollout was started initially from two centers from Tambaram and JJ Hospital in Mumbai, and thereafter all the Center of Excellences started the second line rollout from December 2008 onwards. And while it was decided to roll out the second line antiretroviral therapy, it was decided by NACO to have a mechanism for screening and finding out the persons who are actually eligible for a second line antiretroviral therapy. In that context, SACEP or State AIDS Clinical Expert Panel was formed for all COEs by the National AIDS Control Organization, and that is the mechanism. And thereafter the alternate first line medication also came in, so that was also started from SACEP referral, and gradually the ambit of SACEP referral has gone up. So we'll be discussing today how to improve the SACEP referral pattern. So what we have decided that today we'll have a brief outlook of the structure of State AIDS Clinical Expert Panel, and also we'll look into the functions of the SACEP, and we'll also review the guidelines of National AIDS Control Organization for ART centers, how to refer such cases, what cases are to be referred, and what would be the way of referring, etc. And finally we'll also try to find out what are the existing gaps in our referral system and how can we plug all these issues, and then we can start the second line and alternate first line ART, etc. So, as we all know, that State AIDS Clinical Expert Panel or SACEP is actually located at the Center of Excellence. There are 10 Center of Excellences, and there are Pediatric Center of Excellences, 7 in number in our country, and there are around 37 ART plus centers in the country, and few more are also coming up. And in the SACEP, the nodal officer of the COE or the PCOE or the ART plus center is there, and there are one or more ART experts as nominated by the National AIDS Control Organization. Additionally, there are important people from the national program as well, particularly from the State AIDS Control Societies, the Joint Director or the Consultant CST, where the SACEP is located. Additionally, the Regional Coordinator of CST of National AIDS Control Organization, there are also members of this SACEP. And the Nodal Officer of the Pediatric COE also attends the meeting if there are pediatric cases on a particular day of SACEP meeting. Additionally, the pediatrician from the COE itself also attends on those days. And over and above, occasionally we have visitors who come from the central level, from NACO or consultants like Dr. Rajasekharan sir, and from the states also there are consultants who come to attend the SACEP meeting. Now, what are the functions of the SACEP? SACEP, the main function is to review, confirm and initiate second line as well as alternate first line therapy for patients referred from the referring ART centers. That's one. Second is e-approval for D40 based alternative regimen. We'll be highlighting it in subsequent slides. Third is management of severe opportunistic infections as well as drug toxicities. And the other two functions are, one is mentoring the referring ART center, and high quality case management. That's one of the function of the SACEP that can be done through the SACEP through COE or the PCOE or through the ART plus centers. And last but not the least is documentation and follow-up of all patients who are registered for the SACEP review at these facilities. Okay. Now coming to the SACEP meeting, it meets usually once a week at the Center of Excellence or Pediatric Center of Excellence or ART plus centers to review the cases that are referred to them. It's usually once a day, but if there are large case loads, say for example when the JJ started initially, they used to have SACEP twice weekly. On the other hand, on certain states like say Manipur, in Imphal, RIMS, on second Saturdays they don't conduct the SACEP. So depending on the case load and the local issues, SACEP meetings are usually held once a week. Like in COES, School of Tropical Medicine, it is now being held on every Tuesday. Earlier on we used to start in every Wednesday. Now we are conducting it on every Tuesday. If there is a holiday, then the meeting is on the next day. Usually a maximum of 15 to 20 new patients are reviewed at each meeting, in addition to the old cases that are also being reviewed over there. Now coming to the jurisdiction of the COE, PCOE and the ART plus centers, SACEP review is done in these facilities based on the referrals from the linked ART centers providing first-line ART. So there is a definite linkage plan that has been designated by the National AIDS Control Organization with each COE or PCOE or ART plus centers. So they have got a designated ART centers linked to it, and patients from these centers only are reviewed by the particular COE or PCOE or ART plus center. So for example, the ART center in Patna Medical College is linked with COE BHU. Now patients from Patna Medical College, they often come to our institute at Calcutta School of Tropical Medicine, but they get the antiretroviral medicines from the PMCH ART center. Now when such a patient is required officially to be sent for a suspected treatment failure, they can't send the referrals to School of Tropical Medicine COE. They need to send the referral to the Institute of Medical Sciences IMS at Banaras Hindu University. So we need to know the definite linkage plan. Now coming to the referent guidelines, is the suspected treatment failure to SACEP for review, confirmation and for initiating second line ART, and e-approval for patients with tenofovir toxicity and hemoglobin less than 9 gram per DL, or patients who have got past history of severe anemia following zidovudine therapy, where you cannot use either zidovudine or tenofovir. So there is a provision to start with stavudine based regimen, but for this an e-approval has to be taken from the SACEP. E-approval is nothing, you need to send a similar referral that we do for all other patients. The patient need not be sent physically to the ART plus center or the COE or the PCOE. The SACEP will go through evaluate the e-approval, and they will give the electronic approval for using stavudine based therapy. Now the stavudine based therapy drugs are now available with the state AIDS control societies, and depending on this e-approval, a copy of which should also go to the state control societies, they will be delivering this medicine. Now patients who tolerate both nevirapine and efavirenz, these patients required to be started on protease inhibitor based alternate first line therapy, and for these patients you need to send the referrals to the COE or the ART plus center. Next, you can come across patients where there are toxicities to triple NRTIs, like say someone can be intolerant to zidovudine, maybe developing severe anemia, and stavudine, someone had received stavudine in the past and has developed severe peripheral neuropathy or lipodystrophy, or maybe had suffered from lactic acidosis or pancreatitis, where you cannot rechallenge them with stavudine. And if the patient's renal status is compromised, then definitely tenofovir you cannot actually use in combination, fixed dose combination of tenofovir and lamivudine. So these patients would require to be referral at the SACEP for review and further guidance. Similarly, patients with renal failure can also be referred to the SACEP for appropriate antiretroviral drugs. As you all know that you need to, as per the creatinine clearance, you need to calculate the creatinine clearance, and you need to decide on the NRTI combination. As it's important to point here that the only NRTI that can be used in usual dose is Avacavir 300 milligram BID for an adult, and for other drugs like Zidovudine, it can be used if the creatinine clearance is above 15 milliliter per minute. It can be used in the usual dose of 300 milligram per BID, but if it is less than 15 milliliter per minute, then the Zidovudine dose has to be reduced to 300 milligram once a day. And similarly, Lamivudine dose has to be reduced depending on the creatinine clearance. But these drugs are not available at the level of the ART center current moment. What is that these drugs have now been made available to a large number of COEs. COEs now have procured Avacavir and single ingredient Zidovudine, single ingredient Lamivudine at the strength of 150 milligram as well as 100 milligram, and also Tenofovir 300 milligram as single ingredient drugs. These drugs are not made available to the SACEP. But only thing you need to remember that for patients with renal failure, their management of the renal failure part has to be done in an appropriate facility. All the COEs may not have the facility for dialysis and other things. So they would be required nephrology consultation, and wherever is appropriate, dialysis has to be started with the government, with the public facility. Only thing is that the antiretroviral drugs would be requiring a change, so that can be, those drugs can be dispensed after an SACEP consultation. And then again, we have got patients who have developed serious drug-related toxicities and severe complications. Those patients, as well as there are patients who develop very severe opportunistic infections as well as exotic opportunistic infections, the treatment of which may not be available at a particular ART center. More so among the ART center located at the district and sub-district hospitals may not have all the facilities to diagnose all the opportunistic infections and their management. So those patients can be referred to the SACEP. But only thing is you need to remember that attempts should be made to diagnose the opportunistic infections at the level of the ART center for as much as possible. Otherwise, the SACEP and the COE or ART plus centers will be burdened with a huge load. Now coming to the issue of Center of Excellence, all of you are aware of, there are 10 Center of Excellence starting from PGI Chandigarh, and then MAMC, Maulana Azad Medical College in New Delhi, BHU, Varanasi in Varanasi, RIMS in Imphal, School of Tropical Medicine in Kolkata, BJ Medical College in Ahmedabad, JJ Hospital in Mumbai, the Gandhi Hospital in Hyderabad, and the one in Bangalore, and Tambaram in Chennai. Similarly, there are 7 Pediatric Center of Excellence as well. These are all located in New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Medical College Kolkata, and Imphal. Now, if you look into our jurisdiction of School of Tropical Medicine, we are linked with 6 states: West Bengal, Assam, Sikkim, Odisha, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh. Now, NACO has actually started this facility for rolling out the second line and alternate first line, PI based alternate first line in each state. So patients need not travel to other states to get these medicines. Already there are functional 37 ART plus centers in the country. And in our region, like so for example in Guwahati Medical College, there is an ART plus center for Assam. So all the patients from Assam, they get referred to the ART plus center, SACEP at the ART plus center in Guwahati Medical College. Similarly, Sikkim, although it has got only one ART center, but because of its geographical distribution, it has also been upgraded to as ART plus center. So they are also holding SACEP. Similarly, SCB Medical College in Cuttack has been upgraded to an ART plus center long back, and it is functioning pretty well. I understand they are also holding these SACEP meetings regularly at the SCB Medical College, Cuttack. Similarly, Ranchi has also developed at ART Plus Center, and the Raipur ART Plus Center for Chhattisgarh is, I understand, it's yet to be made functional, but I believe that probably is going to be done very soon. Now let's look into the procedure for initiating alternate first-line ART. The referring ART center should ascertain the types of drug toxicities and their grades among patients on first line. This is very important, that it's not only that naming the toxicity, but you need to grade the toxicities as per the standard guideline. And then next would be the email the details of the patients with type of toxicities, and photo documentation for skin rash should be done for all patients. This is now NACO has provided funds to procure digital camera in all ART centers that should be used by all ART medical officers. Whenever you come across any patient with drug rash, be it a skin rash or mucosal lesion, you need to document all the photographs. The reason is that when these patients come to SACEP, by that time all the rashes have subsided. So sitting in the SACEP, the SACEP members are often at a loss to find out what was the severity or the degree or extent of the rashes. So these are all important in decision making. So what I would suggest that you need to use your cameras and do use them for capturing the skin rash photographs. So whatever, the patient's detail has to be emailed to the SACEP coordinator at the COE or the data manager at the ART Plus Center for review by the SACEP. Now we have got a SACEP coordinator at the COE or the COE research fellow, clinical or non-clinical research fellow, and in case of ART Plus Center, it's the data manager's responsibility to review the patient history and details sent by the center and give appointment to the referring ART center by email for review of SACEP. But one thing is important: the data manager may not be well versed with all these things, but although they have been trained before starting the SACEP, but then again the SMO or the MO of the ART center in case of ART Plus Center should help them out to identify which cases need to be referred to the SACEP and which cases are not to be referred. The next step would be the referring ART center, once they get an appointment from the SACEP at COE or ART Plus Center, this is the responsibility of the referring center to communicate the date and time to the patient by phone and personal contact through the outreach workers of the CSC or the DLN volunteers. Now referring ART center next, they will send the photocopies of the patient's treatment records together with the referral or reply form along with the patient. The referral should be done as per the linkage plan that we have discussed earlier on. Only thing is that you need to ensure that I would request all the SMO and the MOs to ensure that the white card is actually filled in correctly. Because sitting at the SACEP, at times we see that there are white cards where you don't find the baseline investigation, neither the CD4 counts have been mentioned. So it becomes very difficult to assess whether the person is actually having an immunologic failure or what was his or her opportunistic profile. Is very difficult. So we need to ensure that the white card is filled up properly and then photocopied and then send it along with the patient. So this is the referral and reply form is the structured form developed by the National Virus Control Organization. This is the request form. I'm not going into the detail because all the ART MOs are actually familiar with this one, but I would like to draw your attention to this one issue, that whenever you send, you just need to mention, you need to check the box. If it is, you are considering is a case of an NRTI intolerance where you are expecting a PI based regimen, so do check the box on toxicity to first line ARV drugs. And in case you are considering that your patient has a suspected treatment failure, probably a immunologic failure or clinical failure, then check the box with suspect treatment failure. And there can be others. Others can be something like a person who is already on second line therapy from the outside, from private sector. Now he wants to get the medicine from the government sector. You can mention in that others category. And you can also send patients with very rare and difficult diagnosis or diagnosis. So those cases also, severe opportunistic infection or severe drug reaction, those cases can also be mentioned in the others category. And others are like name, age, gender, ART registration number, name of the caregiver, and the phone number is also very important. Address and phone number of the caregiver and the patient are to be there. The important thing, these are the checklist, what you need to do, send, like photocopy of the patient treatment card record or white card, photocopy of all lab tests, including the CD4. At times we see that there are 3 CD4s are being sent, a baseline, peak value and the current value. But you need to send a photocopy of all the lab tests, including all the CD4 counts. And photocopy of all other relevant material, photo documentation of rash, I have already talked about, and address book with photograph of the patient should be there. The next 3 sessions are very important, but often these are this remains blanks in the referral format, like summary of the case history of the patient, pre-ART, on ART, and suspected treatment failure and suspected ARV toxicity. Although there are little space, at least you can utilize this space, or you can, these are all available in the Word document, so you can type it out, so that you will find more space on that. But you need to mention whatever the pre-ART major opportunistic infections were there, what ARV regimen was started, when was it started, all this information should be there, and when substitutions have been made because of toxicities or side effects, etc. And why treatment failure is suspected. If there is a clinical failure, you need to mention those stage 4 or stage 3 illness, etc. And then summary of adherence history and other psychosocial issues. This is also very important. Unless the patient has got a appropriate adherence, it's of no point in sending the referral for a suspected treatment failure. We'll come to that later on, but you need to do a summary of adherence has to be there. And similarly, summary of all relevant lab tests, including CD4. But the key word in this line is that the CD4 count at the point when you send the referral, it should be within a month. Our CD4 count are done more than a month has to be repeated before you send the referrals. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to give an appointment for the SACEP referrals. And you will also find that some of the patients might have undertaken viral load in the past, maybe from the program itself through SACEP, and the viral load was found to be less than 400, and he was advised to take a repeat viral load test after 6 months. Or if the viral load was supposed between 400 to 5000 copies of HIV RNA, probably he was advised to repeat the viral load after 3 months. So you need to mention this. If the viral load test was done, what was the value and the date. And finally, it should ideally be signed by the nodal officer of the referring ART center. At times we find referrals without any signature. Now this is the other part of the same form, request form to SACEP, this form. This is about now coming to the procedure for initiating alternate first line therapy. The SACEP first reviews the patient and his or her records, examine the patient and looks into his treatment records, the investigation reports, and then approves the COE or the PCOE or the ART plus center to initiate alternate first line drugs. And when the patient is found to have severe toxicities, when the patient is found to be severe toxicities to the first line ART, like grade 4 reaction or a grade 3 reaction, patient started on alternate first line ART is started. These days basically mostly these are all PI based first line therapy, alternate therapy. They are started after at least 3 rounds of adherence counseling and undertaking certain investigations, mandatory investigations like fasting blood sugar, fasting lipid profile, serum creatinine, routine urine analysis, etc. And it is very important to counsel the patient, since they will be moving on from one drug to another drug. They should be explained and talked about the toxic profile of the newer drug. Suppose you are starting someone on atagenavir, you need to talk about that your eyes might become yellowish because of unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. The patient has to be counseled. These are all important. And the patient needs to be counseled not to use proton pump inhibitors or H2 receptor antagonists like ranitidine, famotidine, etc., along with atazanabine. So these counseling and preparing the patient before you start, this is very absolutely crucial. So it takes some time. That's why while sending referrals, you need to talk to the patient also that even if the alternate drugs will be started, the patient, it might take 2 to 3 days before you go all through these investigations and counseling, then they will be starting. So the patient has to be primed by the ERT SMO or MO before sending the referrals. Otherwise, they expect, the patient comes to the SACEP and they expect that the medicine will be given immediately, but that doesn't take place in most of the occasions. And once decided by the SACEP to provide alternate first-line ART to the patient's review, the clinical management of the patient will be done by the COE or the PCOE or ART plus center for initial 3 to 6 months. This holds good particularly for PI-based therapy, because after 3 to 6 months of therapy, the patient can actually be referred back to the center. And it's not actually referred back. The patient in the programmatic condition, it's called transferred out. The patient who has been considered for alternate first-line therapy will be transferred out from the referring ART center to the COE or ART plus center where the SACEP is located. And after 3 to 6 months of treatment, the patient may be transferred back to his or her linked ART center unless the patient has got major side effects and toxicities of the PIs or other drugs that are being used. And while transferring back the patient to their nodal ART center or the referring center, it's the responsibility of the COE or the ART plus center to ensure that the patient has no adverse effects and no opportunistic infection. That has to be looked into. If there are adverse effects, that has to be managed at the level of the ART plus center and COE. Or similarly, if there are opportunistic infections that need to be treated and managed at that level. Unless the patient has got some compelling issues that he or she needs to go back to his place at the ART center, so this could be the other exceptions. And the drug logistics are being currently handled by the State Health Control Society to the supply chain mechanism that is already well known to all ART medical officers. Now, if you look, how can we measure, strengthen the SACEP referral for alternative first line? First is, once again I will reiterate that for if someone is considering a D40 based regimen in case of TDF toxicity and anemia, where AZT cannot be used, only thing is that for an E approval has to be taken from the SACEP, the patient need not be sent, only the records would be required to be sent through email. On the other hand, in case of NNRTI toxicity like Stevens-Johnson syndrome or toxic epidermal necrolysis, the patient indeed need to be referred to the SACEP along with photo documentation for the rash. This is important that we need to follow. And triple toxicity to triple NRTIs like zidovudine, tenofovir, stavudine, or patients with renal failure requiring dosage adjustment for antiretrovirals, these patients should also be referred to the SACEP as per the standing protocol. And it's also important to strengthen, as I said, I would request all the ARTMOs to now onwards please try to grade the toxicities. If you look into your ART treatment guideline, it is there that you need to follow. Now this is the general guidance of grading and management of drug toxicities that's followed in the National Health Control Organization. The grade 1 is called to be mild and you really don't require to change the antiretrovirals, but you need to do a very close observation. So that should be done. But the change of ART is not needed. So there shouldn't be any knee-jerk reaction. If there is a mild toxicity, you need not stop the antiretroviral. So you can continue with that. Similarly, grade 2 is mild to moderate, where the similar guidance is there. The changes of ART should be avoided, but a close observation and monitoring of the patient clinically as well as at times may be required some by biochemical parameters would also be required. But in case of moderate rash, it will usually be necessary to discontinue the suspected drug till the condition improves or it resolves completely. Subsequently, it may be possible to cautiously re-administer the drug. But when it is said that the buzzword is the cautiously, so it has to be if you are dealing with a restart with the same medication in a case of moderate rash, you need to consider that the patient has to be admitted under in an institute, and there you would be required to restart the drug under close observation by a expert team. And in case of severe rash or grade 4 rash, which is actually maybe life-threatening, you need to discontinue all drugs, not only antiretrovirals, you need to all drugs which have got the potential to produce rash, and also to stop all unnecessary drugs or non-emergency drugs or non-mandatory drugs like vitamin B complex, multivitamins, etc., etc. And you need to hospitalize the patient, and the offending drug should not be re-administered. So, and after improvement, institution of alternate antiretroviral regimen comprising of a drug substituted from the for the offending drug has to be done. Say for example, someone develops a severe Stevens-Johnson syndrome following nevirapine, gets admitted, gets cured of the condition, then the patient would be required not to be rechallenged with efavirenz, but the patient should be initiated on a boosted protease inhibitor based regimen. Just the common probably the rashes, the toxicities that we encounter in the SACEP is the rashes. I have already discussed a little bit about that. So this is the protocol in our program, management of drug toxicities, and commonly they are due to either nevirapine or efavirenz. If you look into the symptoms and signs, the rash typically usually occurs during the first 2 to 4 weeks of treatment initiation. As you know that nevirapine we start off with initially with a leading dose of 200 mg once a day, and if there is no rash or hepatitis, then we move on to 200 mg BD from day 15 onwards. The typical rash of NNRTI, they are usually erythematous, maculopapular rash or morbilliform rash. They can be discrete as well as confluent. They are most prominent on the body and arms. They may or may not be associated with pruritus, and they can occur with or without fever. This is the commonest type of rash that we see with NNRTIs, particularly with nevirapine and occasionally with efavirenz as well. The second important thing that we come across is known as a Grace syndrome, which is the mnemonics is actually drug rash, and then eosinophilia and systemic symptoms. And typically if you look at the rash of Grace, it is different from syndrome. The rashes are usually sort of exfoliative dermatitis, and the important clinical feature is an edema, particularly edema of the face and hands and feet are often seen, and in look into the peripheral blood there will be an eosinophilia. So Grace is another kind of, this is also known as drug hypersensitivity syndrome. And the last but not the least but most important and life-threatening condition is either Stevens-Johnson syndrome or toxic epidermal necrolysis. The incidence is very low, less than 1% in patients infected with receiving nevirapine. So this is one, and that we need to remember. Also that the patients with a higher CD4 count, they are not only susceptible to increased hepatotoxicity, they are also susceptible to increased incidence of skin rash as well. And often this skin rash is associated with a rise of T and AST that we need to remember. Now how do we manage such cases? In mild cases, only thing that we do is give antihistamines, and if it is a pruritic lesion, give some topical astringent and antipruritic combination. If the rash is moderate, non-progressing and without any mucosal or systemic symptoms, consider substituting nevirapine on efavirenz after the rash resolves. So you would be required to stop nevirapine, and once the rash subsides and if there is no features like fever, no mucosal involvement, there is no edematous lesions or erythema multiforme sort of lesions, there if it is not associated with rise of ALT etc., then you can consider substituting nevirapine with efavirenz following the rash resolves. But you need to do it once again under the close medical supervision. It will be that is the key issue. And in moderate and severe cases, discontinue with all antiretrovirals until the symptoms resolve and give supportive treatment. And in case of severe rashes, you need to permanently discontinue nevirapine for rash with systemic symptoms such as fever, severe rash with mucosal lesions or urticaria or SJS or TEN. Once resolved, switch ART to different ARV classes. In our program, we are switching to boosted PIs like boosted atazanavir or boosted lopinavir. So this is all about the rash. Now coming to the issues related to second line ART. Now these are all of you are aware of that the universal access to second line ART has been decided by the government of India, that second line ART is now available to all those in need of it because of treatment failure, whether they underwent first line treatment in the government sector or in the private sector. This actually followed a Supreme Court guidance that we need to give even patients who have received first line therapy in the first line and then failed and shifted to second line therapy. Now if they try to access second line drugs from the national program, you can actually they are eligible for getting it from the the public sector. What to do in those cases? The person in need of second line treatment will have to register at the nearest ART center. This could be a person with a suspected treatment failure to first line, or it could be a person who is already on second line treatment. So once the person gets registered at the ART center, it will be the responsibility of the ART center to send the referral to the SACEP, maintaining the usual procedure and mentioning him in the others category, that already on second line or getting first line from the private sector, etc., whatever may be the case in the particular case. And the second line ART will be provided after evaluation and approval of SACEP as per the existing technical guidelines. Whatever technical guidelines of NACO exist in terms of second line guideline, that the SACEP will be maintaining that. So coming to the process of this is important, how to suspect and assess treatment failure and initiate second line therapy. If in at the ART center level, confirmation of treatment failure based on immunological and clinical criteria before the referral. So this is important, and counsel the patient and family members as the patient has suspected treatment failure. What I would suggest, don't tell your patient has failed first line antiretroviral therapy. The reason is that all those cases suspected treatment failure by clinical and immunological criteria, when they undergo the viral load testing, some of them, they don't actually have virologic failure. So in that case, the SACEP will advise to continue the same first line antiretroviral regimen. So that we need to remember. Similarly, and at the SACEP, the responsibility would be to verification of the records and examination of patients to assess the referral is in order as per NACO guideline. As I said, it should be at least the patient should be on antiretroviral therapy for at least 6 to 12 months. There should be appropriate adherence in the last 6 months. That should be there. And the request for HIV viral load testing is done by the SACEP and to confirm the treatment failure, because most of the cases the RTMOs they really send suspect the failures correctly. They send them, and when they are tested, they are found to be eligible for viral load testing. And once the viral load is above 5,000, the guideline would say that they join antiretroviral therapy. That should be done. Here is the question from ARTC Plus Center, STB Medical College. In medicine in private, can we consider the PLHI? I think I have just discussed that. Yes, you can enroll that person and send a referral to your and you are at the ART Plus Center, so you will have a SACEP. That decision has to be taken at the SACEP, that if the patient is already on second line therapy following a failure to first line therapy, he should be put on to the national second line ART regimen of atazanavir, ritonavir with tenofovir, lamivudine, unless the contraindication to in any one of the drugs. But we need to tell the patient and need to counsel and take their formal consent also, since we have got a form that I will be showing it to you, that they need to sign all this. There are certain points that they need to counsel about, and what are the limitations and they need some uh, consent for their home visits and shared extended confidentiality, all these issues, and whatever government second line drugs are there, the patient need to consent that he or she might have been raltegravir or maybe darunavir, ritonavir as a second line, but that those drugs are not available in the program. So whatever the government second line is available, the SACEP will decide it in a, the experts will decide the regimen. I think that will be clarifying your question. Now move the next slide. Yeah, what is needed at the ART center level? If you look into a ART center guideline, you'll have a find protocol A 1.1. It's a very important protocol where you actually determine the ART failure among patients who attend ART centers. So the suspect treatment failure during the medical consultation on each clinic visit. This is important. Whenever the patient comes to your clinic, you need to think about treatment failure. And how do you suspect? If there is a T staging of the disease, suppose the patient was T1 for a few months and then starts T2 and then T3, so that should be a trigger to suspect whether my patient is actually failing. So that should be there. It could be occurrence of new opportunistic infection or malignancy, or it could be a recurrence of a previous opportunistic infection, or the occurrence of another WHO stage 3 or stage 4 conditions. That's a clinical failure, as you are all aware of. But you know that the most important is the virologic failure is the first, followed by immunologic failure, and then the clinical failure. There's a usual pattern of failure, sequence of events when someone fails antiretroviral regimen. CD4 count, all of you are aware, there are three criteria. The fall of CD4 count to pre-treatment baseline level, and if it is more than, the second point is more than 50% fall from the on-treatment peak value, or if persistently the below 100 even after 1 year of antiretroviral therapy. Now, suspect treatment failure during medical conditions. In case of what I have talked about, that was in the first slide. Now I am talking about the same thing in children. It's essentially same. The clinically, by advanced T staging, occurrence of new opportunistic infection or malignant, recurrence of previous wise, onset of recurrence of WHO stage 3 or 4 conditions, and importantly, progressive neurodevelopmental deterioration. Additional points in children can indicate a treatment failure clinically. And if you look at the CD4 count in children below 3 years or between 12 to 35 months of age, if the CD4 percentage falls below 15%, that should be a trigger of failure. In case of child between 2 to 5 years, 36 to 59 months of age, it's less than 10%. And in case of child more than 5 years of age, if the CD4 count, absolute count is less than cells per meter, he or she, that child should be suspected to have an immunologic failure and referred for virologic confirmation. So what you do at the ART center, the ARTMO suspect treatment failure during the medical consultation each month when they drop in for collection of medicine. And if there is a suspected treatment failure, the next question that should come on your mind, whether the patient is on ART for at least 6 months. If no, don't consider treatment failure. It could be a case of RIS. It could be someone who is immunodeficiency and developing another opportunistic infection, and for that the CD4 count might also go down. So that's why you need to look whether the patient is already on ART. The duration of ART is very important. At least the patient should be on ART for 6 months before you suspect actually treatment failure. If the more than if the patient is more than 6 months, then you need to see how the patient is, how is the patient's adherence to first line ART. Is it having a consistently more than 95% adherence over the last 6 to 12 months? This is important. If not, then you need to find out what are the problems with this with this particular patient with his or her adherence. Need to find out, need to talk to the caregiver or the family members and try to support the patient to improve his or her adherence. Maybe you can repeat the CD4 after 2 to 4 weeks to see whether it's an variability in CD4 determination, and you can once again repeat it after 1 or 3 months of ART, and if it shows an upward trend, then you can defer the referral for treatment failure. But if you consider that yes, your patient is having a very good adherence, documented adherence, then you need to look into the CD4 count. What is the CD4 count, most current one? Is it done within a month of the current medical consultation when you are in a treatment failure? If it yes, then it's fine. Otherwise, you need to repeat the CD4 count on that medical consultation. This is important. You are suspecting someone having a treatment failure either by clinical or immunologically. The CD4 count you see is being done 3 months back. Do check on CD4 count on that particular day. Don't give him or another day for a CD4 count. This is an thing that you can actually improve and delay the referral also. Once it is done, you need the CD4 is indicative of treatment failure by this one of those 3 criteria as we have discussed. Either the CD4 falls below the baseline or the CD4 count falls more than 50% from the on treatment peak value, or if it fails to reach the magic figure of 100 even after 1 year of ART, then only you can send the referral. So you need to, these are the key steps that you need to follow at the ART center. Now what is being done once the viral load is tested at the at the SACEP with the linked laboratory? The results can be either of these 3. This is, I'm talking about adults and adolescents, a little different with children that we'll discuss in next slide. The viral load, it could come either more than 5,000 copies, which is by definition in the programmatic condition treatment failure, virologic failure. So more than 5,000, that should be a confirmed treatment failure, and he or she is eligible for second line ART. That has to be ART to be started after those mandatory counseling and mandatory tests done. It could be something between less than 400. That means there is virologic suppression. That means the patient has immunologic and or clinical failure by which for which the viral load test was done. But then again, you see the viral load is less than 400. There you need to continue first line ART at the referring ART center. But the CD4 count has to be monitored every 3 months, and the viral load has to be monitored after 6 months. So this is important. Once the patient goes back, you get the response from the SACEP that patient's CD4 count has to be monitored every 3 months because he had got a immunologic failure, but there is a virologic suppression. So the CD4 count has to be done every 3 months, and the viral load test has to be repeated after 6 months in case of adults and adolescents. If it is between 400 to 5, then this is intermediate zone. Again, the patient would be continue first line ART at the referring ART center, and the at the ART plus center should with a repeat CD4 count and viral load both done at 3 months interval after 3 months. So here it will be done a little earlier after 3 months. This you need to remember. So whenever such patients go back to your center, please ensure the patients who has come back from SACEP, they would be required to go for a repeat viral load testing either at 3 months depending on viral load values, at 6 months if the viral load is suppressed. And in case of children, it is almost same, except that even if the copies is less than 400, the CD viral load will be repeated at 3 monthly interval, similar to the range between 400 to 5,000 as in adults. I think that makes the clear. That means in children, CD4 and viral load should be done after 3 months. The CD4 will be monitored at the ART center, the referring ART center, and the viral load to be done at the PCOE where the patient has been linked. And others like the more than 5,000, similar to adults, they confirm treatment failure and should be initiated on second line. with Evacavir, Lamivudine and Ritonavir, etc. That to be done. Now, what are the protocol for SACEP review? Once again, the following we will try to recollect. Follow the protocol A 1.1 for suspected treatment failure, and then in details like ARV history, clinical values, and the reasons for referrals of the patient to the COE or the PCOE or the ART Plus Center to get appointments. The COE coordinator or the data manager of the ART Plus Center will enter the patient's details in the SACEP register. The COE SACEP coordinator or the COE research fellow, medical or non-medical, and the ART Plus manager will review patient and give appointment date and time to the referring center by email for review by SACEP. I would like to reiterate once again for ART Plus Center where you don't have an SACEP coordinator or research associate, be primarily fielded, the question will be primarily fielded by the data manager, but SMO and the MO needs to guide him or her to ascertain their referral issues that we need to. And the referring ART center will then communicate the data to the patient. Don't expect that this is the responsibility of the SACEP to communicate the patient. At times there are some ART centers, they expect that the SACEP will communicate the date and time of the patient by phone and personal contact by the outreach workers. But it's the responsibility of the ART center. Once they get the appointment, they would be required to contact the patient either over phone or through outreach workers of CSC or the DLN volunteers. This we need to remember. The next step is that referring ART center will send the photocopies of patient records together with the referral and reply form 6 that we have already shown to you, and confirm that the COE SACEP coordinator or the ART Plus Center data manager has received it. So communication has to be there between the ART center, referring ART center, and the appropriate people at the COE or ART Plus Center. The SACEP coordinator or the ART Plus Center data manager prepares the weekly SACEP meeting formats, and the SACEP, the team meeting will, the members will review the case notes only in the presence of patient and guardian. This is very important. Upon approval for Lamivudine based regimen, all other referrals, the patient need to be there at the SACEP meeting. Guardian. The SACEP will order a viral load test according to protocol A 1.2. Blood samples are drawn by the laboratory technician of the CO. The sample is to be transported to the viral load laboratory that will be processed according to the laboratory guidelines sections. Basically, our institute at School of Tropical Medicine, we have been linked with the IC at the ID hospital city of Kolkata, where samples are being sent. Similarly, for other centers like Guwahati Medical College as well as ART Plus Center from SCBML College also, they send patients to the School of Tropical. SACEP blood is drawn and is transported to the lab. Now, in the next meeting, the SACEP will review the viral load results in the next meeting, and they decide on management of the patient with like if it is less than 400,000 or above. Document one of the following: provide second line ART, eligible for second line ART at the point like if it is between if it is less than, or if the re-evaluate the patient like 5,000, then the CD4 and the viral load test has to be repeated after 3 months in case of adults, and also and if the viral load is less than 100 copies, then test has to be repeated after 6 months, and then it should be repeated after 2 months. Once the decision by the provide second line second line ART to the patient reviewed, the clinical management will be done at the COE or the PCOE or the ART plus center, and only the officer of the COE or PCOE or ART plus center prescribes the second line ART. This is important. And the COE plus center data manager shall inform the referring ART center for the following reasons, following actions, like first is transfer out the pain in an M&E format that exists in our program to the COE or PCOE referring center for further for the ARTMOs. And the patient has to go 3 counseling sessions. This is important before starting second line therapy, because we really don't have any third line. The nuances of the antiretroviral drugs, their adherence, always aim at 100% adherence to ensure treatment preparedness at the COE or ART plus center. Monthly at the COE ART plus. After 6 months of second line ART follow-up, viral load test has to be performed for all patients ART plus, and patient with clinical stability may be transferred back to the referring ART center irrespective of the viral load result after ascertaining patient's willingness. Sometimes with the ART plus center, that's one. If the patient wants to go, but after 6 months, if the patient can be back to the referring ART center, and the drug supply will be once again will be taken care of by the state AIDS control societies. And the coordinator or the at ART plus data manager, they send the monthly reports to. Today is the day when the second line report has to be sent to NACO for all ART. I think there is a request, please show the viral load slide for children. So I need to go back a little to show that slide. This is for SME Medical College ART Plus Center. If you look to, I would like to once again continue first line ART at the ART center. In our case, in case of SC Medical College in another ART center in the state of Odisha, the follow-up should be, and the monitoring has to be done at 34 and viral load if less than 400, and in adults it was 6. But if you look into 400 to 5000, it is the CD4 and viral load is these 2 columns in case of children. But this is, there is no confusion on it, because 1000 is the current criteria where you need to start second line therapy. I think that will clarify all doubts and these things. Consent form for all patients starting line therapy. This is important. The patient name, address has to be there, and if the patient cannot read in English, then this form has to be translated in the language and should be explained to the patient so that they can before signing or understand what they are actually committed to. It mentions the second line ART is not an emergency, and thus as per the doctor, I shall attend the ART center as per appointment for timely initiation of ART and regular follow-up. And also talks about the shared confidentiality that with other services like the community-based positive network people, etc. And ART requires 100% adherence. This should be emphasized. The patient has to understand that, and currently no third line ART in the program. That the patient should also understand. and they need to understand the side effects of the second line drug, vouch that they should not stop drugs of their own, and these are all issues that, and there will be a signature of the patient as well as a or PCOE or ART plus center. The or above 400. If it is less than 400, transfer back the patient to the original referring ART center with detailed treatment plan on case-to-case basis depending on the capacity of the referring ART center as well as willingness of the patient to being transferred back. But after 6 months they become eligible, and particularly if the patient doesn't have an active opportunistic infection or say any major drug side effects, they can be transferred back. Even if the viral load is more than even if it is more than 400, then also the follow-up, the advice has to be there. Probably the adherence has to be reinforced, and this is important because after 6 months most of the patients starting the second line are expected to have a viral load that should become undetectable with the less than 400. But if there is an issue, one should consider about the adherence issue and reinforce the adherence, and the patient can be transferred back to the original referring ART center provided the patient is agreeing or willing to do so. And once again, for such patients the viral load test has to be repeated at 12 months of second line antiretroviral therapy, and if it is still undetectable, then the case has to be referred to the National AIDS Control NACEP or National AIDS Clinical Expert Panel, to NACO, so they will be doing it. Now here is another question from SCB Medical College. It says that the PLHA CD4 is less than 100 in last 2 years and his RNA is not reactive. What can we do these cases, for these cases? Actually, what I would suggest that these are typically cases of immunologic non-responders. So in fact, it is seen that in any program 15 to 20% of patients will come into this category where there will be immunologic failure but there will be virologic suppression. You need to try to rule out as many causes as possible which are known to give rise to such conditions. So, say for example, try to rule out whether there is an HIV-2 co-infection, whether there is an HBV or HCV co-infection, if the patient is having an uncontrolled diabetes, if the patient is on zidovudine based therapy, then you need to look into the WBC count. If there is a leukopenia, substitute zidovudine with tenofovir, then your CD4 count will go up. And you need to also look into the medication history, whether the patient is on steroids or other immunosuppressions, maybe from other providers due to some other conditions like asthma, eczema or some other autoimmune diseases, that you need to try and find out. And also some patients who are aged, particularly patients who start ART with age above 50 years, they are more likely to fall in this category. So actually it will be a long exercise, but you need to probe and you need to continue with the cotrimoxazole prophylaxis for such patients and continue with the same ARV regimen. But if your patient is on zidovudine based regimen, I repeat once again, if the patient is on zidovudine regimen, look into the WBC count, and if the leukopenia is there, then you substitute zidovudine with tenofovir and the patient's CD4 count will actually go up. So what we have discussed till now is basically that the state AIDS control expert panel or SACEP actually assesses the patients for rolling out alternate first line ART and second line ART in 10 COEs, 7 pediatric COEs and 37 functional ART plus centers like including SCB Medical College, Kotak, Guwahati Medical College, etc. And procedures that need to be adopted for adults and children are almost the same except for some minor changes that we have already discussed and deliberated and highlighted all those issues. And our second line ART is now made available for all those who who require second line antiretroviral therapy by universal access as per NACO guideline, whether they receive first line antiretroviral therapy in the private sector or not, that should not be taken into consideration. The patient has to be registered at the nearest ART center, and the SACEP referral has to be sent to the ART Plus or the COE. So I don't, if there are no further questions, I don't know whether there are questions. Maybe I have finished my session. And if there are questions, we can still discuss. Dr. Rajesh Sekharan is there. I understand, sir. Can you guide us on some few more points? If I have missed out something. If there are questions or comments or that we can still discuss, otherwise we will be closing the session after a few minutes. So we are closing the session here. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir. Please send your feedback at coestamatter@gmail.com. Thank you all.
Right.